The sun hadn't yet crested the hills when I stepped out onto the back porch of my ranch, coffee in hand, and watched the mist roll across the lake. It was quiet still enough that the water looked like glass, reflecting the sky in perfect symmetry. My grandfather had dug that lake with his own hands in 1946. It had seen droughts, floods, and 3 generations of Callahans. To me, it was more than land, it was legacy. I never imagined it would become a battleground. 5 years ago, suburbia started creeping up on my land like ivy on old stone. A sprawling HOA development popped up just beyond the Eastern Ridge cookie-cutter houses, white picket fences, and residents who thought they'd bored into paradise. I kept my distance. I wasn't part of the HOA, never signed anything, and made it crystal clear my ranch wasn't theirs to manage. That didn't sit well with Karen Mitchell. Karen was the self-elected president of the newly formed Timber Creek HOA, and if there was ever a woman born to clip wings and enforce rules, it was her. Platinum blonde, always in a pastel pantsuit, and armed with a clipboard like it was a weapon. She believed in order, and in her mind, everything she could see should fall under her control, including my lake. At first it was harmless enough. A note in my mailbox. Hi neighbor, wouldn't it be lovely if the community could share your lake for small paddleboat events? I tossed it in the trash. Then came another, more official-looking letter. Dear Mr. Callahan, as your lake is within the visual landscape of Timber Creek, we'd like to formally request access for HOA-affiliated activities. Please consider our mutual benefit. Mutual benefit. No thanks, I didn't respond. Then, one Saturday morning, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Tacked to the HOA community board near the subdivision gate was a laminated flyer. Exciting news. Lakefront events now available. Book your spot with HOA President Karen. I yanked it down and read it twice. My name wasn't on it. There was no mention of permission. She was selling access to my lake like it belonged to her. The fury hit like a flash flood. I climbed into my truck, tore down the gravel path, and drove straight into Timber Creek. The HOA's weekly meeting was already underway in the community center, a beige stucco building that looked like every other house in the neighborhood. Slammed the door open. Karen stood at the front of the room, gesturing at a poster board with charts and lake photos. My lake, excuse me, I said, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. Who gave you permission to advertise access to my property? The room fell silent. Karen turned, that ever-pleasant rehearsed smile frozen on her face. Oh, Mr. Callahan, we assumed since the lake is visible from the subdivision and aligns with our community aesthetic, it was functionally part of Timber Creek. You assumed wrong. But surely we can be neighborly, she said, her tone syrupy. Our residents would love to enjoy such a lovely body of water. You trespass, and I'll have every last one of you cited, I snapped. This lake isn't for sale, for lease, or for sharing. Karen blinked, then stiffened like I'd just slapped her in front of the congregation. The meeting ended in stunned silence, and I left with the weight of 30 pairs of eyes drilling into my back. I thought that would be the end of it. WASN single quotes the next weekend. I spotted 2 families dragging folding chairs and fishing gear across my pasture, their kids already splashing in the shallows. I approached and told them they were trespassing. We were told the HOA arranged this. One man replied, half apologetic. Did the HOA build this lake? I asked. No sir. Then leave now. They packed up and left, grumbling. I expected a call from Karen. I didn't get one. Instead, on Monday morning I found a folded letter taped to my front gate. It was stamped with the Timber Creek HOA logo and typed in bold red letters. Final warning, aggressive behavior reported. HOA will be pursuing legal avenues. That's when I knew this wasn't just a boundary dispute, it was war. The air was tense. The morning I found footprints down by the lake, muddy sandal prints leading from the HOA's trailhead straight into my pasture. They weren't mine, and I hadn't given permission for anyone to be there. Again, this time, I didn't just find swimmers or strollers. I found Karen. She stood at the water's edge, hands on her hips, dressed in pastel activewear and sunglasses, as reflective as her personality. Next to her were 2 teenage boys and a woman I recognized as the HOA secretary, lounging under a portable umbrella like it was their backyard. You're trespassing, I said flatly. Karen didn't flinch. Jacob, the community is enjoying the lake. You're making this harder than it needs to be. This isn't a community feature. It's my land, and if you're on it without permission, that's a crime. She smiled like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You've made yourself an obstacle, and the HOA has options. This area visually impacts property values. It's a shared interest now. My grip tightened on the post I was leaning against. You're playing a dangerous game, I said. She scoffed. No, Mr. Callahan, you are. The board agrees your refusal to cooperate is disruptive, so we've filed a claim. A claim, I repeated. On my lake, on shared access to community-adjacent land, she said, pulling out her clipboard like she was presenting gospel. I stepped forward. Get off my property now. That's when she did it. Karen pulled out her phone and dialed. Yes, hello, this is Karen Mitchell, HOA president. I'm with a man who's acting aggressively and threatening members of our community. He's shouting and approaching us in a threatening manner. Yes, ... Armed, I believe. She looked at me with a smile. A challenge. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just turned and walked back to the house. 20 minutes later, I heard the cruisers. The blue lights flickered through the tree line as 2 sheriff's deputies made their way down my gravel drive. I met them halfway. My arms were visible. My stance.com. One of the officers stepped out, hand resting lightly on his holster. Sir, we got a call about a disturbance near the lake. She lied, I said deadpan. I asked her and her group to leave my land. I didn't yell, I didn't touch anyone. I sure as hell didn't threaten them. The other officer walked toward the lake, taking stock of the group still lounging at the shoreline. He returned after a few moments, eyes narrowed. No weapons. No witnesses claiming violence, he said to his partner. Then to me, do you have documentation proving this is your land? I handed them the deed certified precise, covering every inch down to the waterline. Karen Mitchell keeps claiming this is community property, I added, but she's got no legal basis. She's crossing boundaries, literally. Karen stomped over in full theatrical mode. Officers, he's harassing families, intimidating people with threats of force. He's dangerous. One deputy turned to her calmly. Ma'am, we've reviewed the situation. This land is deeded to Mr. Callahan. You're the one trespassing. Karen's jaw dropped. That's ridiculous. I represent the H. You represent your subdivision, the deputy said. That doesn't grant you power over private ranch land. If you continue these false reports, you'll be facing charges. For the first time, Karen looked rattled. You can't talk to me like that, she snapped. Ma'am, the deputy said, less patient now. You're lucky we're not hauling you in today. Karen turned her back and marched away, pulling out her phone again, muttering something about taking it higher. I stood silent as the officers left, their warnings echoing behind them. Karen didn't even glance at me as she stormed back toward her pristine cul-de-sac, but I saw it. That tremble in her fingers. She wasn't used to losing. Later that evening, I sat by the lake with a bourbon in hand, replaying every word. I thought the confrontation would be the peak. But Karen wasn't done. That night, HOA notices were tacked. 2 trees along my fence line sealed in plastic, official looking like some kind of territorial claim. One read, Lake access under legal review, HOA authority pending. My fists clenched. This wasn't just arrogance anymore, it was a land grab. She wanted to drag me through courts, red tape and public shame, all because I dared to say no. Fine, if Karen wanted a war over the lake, I'd give her one, but I wasn't going to fight it her way. I was going to end it. When it comes to land disputes, there are 2 ways to win, in court or in the dirt. I had no interest in court. Karen was the kind of person who weaponized bureaucracy like a sword, but land was something I understood, and it just so happened I had more leverage than she realized. The morning after those fake HOA authority pending signs appeared on my trees, I called Marcus Dillard, my attorney, and a longtime friend of the family. He specialized in rural land law and once cleared a pipeline company off my cousin's cattle range with nothing more than a cease and desist and a smile. You still handle property acquisition? I asked. Marcus chuckled. You in the mood to buy or bury someone? Both. I explained the situation. The trespassing, the false police report, the HOA trying to carve a piece of my land from under me. Dig into her, Marcus. I want to know everything. Within a week he called back with a nugget of gold. Karen Mitchell's property is in trouble. Big trouble. Turns out she refinanced her lot last year for that kitchen remodel, overextended herself, missed 2 payments. Her mortgage company's already sniffing around. I leaned back in my porch chair, heart pounding. Is it for sale? Not yet. But I know a guy who knows a guy. We can make an offer. Quietly. By the end of the month, I owned Karen Mitchell's lot. Not under my name. Marcus handled it through a trust. Karen had no idea who her new landlord was. All she knew was that a buyer had swooped in, paid above market, and the ink was dry. I waited 1 week, let her enjoy her delusion. Then I dropped the hammer. She came home from yoga one morning to find a crew installing a 10-foot privacy fence along the border of what had once been her walking path to the lake. The easement trail that ran from her, a lot to the lake's edge, cut off, gone. Sealed. She marched over, red in the face, barking orders at the workers like she still owned something. Excuse me, who authorized this construction? This is illegal. They handed her a business card, High Ridge Land Trust property manager. She called the number. Marcus answered. Yes, Miss Mitchell. You're speaking to the legal representative for the new property owner. Knew what owner? The trust that now owns your lot and the easement access. She went silent. Marcus continued smoothly. Per the recorded deed transfer, you no longer control the bordering access trail. The new owner has exercised their full right to restrict access to all adjoining land. I'll sue, she hissed. You can try, but you'll lose. Good day. Click. Karen's fury boiled over within hours. She sent emails, HOA newsletters, even tried to rally a Free the Lake campaign, but it fizzled fast. The moment word got out that her own access was revoked, her neighbors turned on her. The HOA board distanced themselves. No one wanted to be the next to face the fence. She tried to call a meeting. No one showed. She tried to post signs. They were taken down. Then she tried the press code the local paper, tried to spin a story about a land baron bullying a peaceful neighborhood. But the reporter called me for comment. I handed over copies of the footage, the fake flyers, the police report she'd filed against me. The article never ran. By the third week, Karen's garden was overgrown, her front porch piled with unopened mail. She didn't wave to passers-by anymore, and her perfect posture, the smug, clipboard-clutching posture she used to command meetings, had shriveled. I didn't celebrate. Not openly. I just sat by my lake, now quiet again, and waited until the moving truck pulled into a driveway, left in silence, though goodbye. No final flyer. Just vanished. Word was, she moved in with a sister downstate. Something about resetting. I didn't care. What mattered was that the lake was mine again. Untouched, unchallenged, and every step Karen took to control it had brought her one step closer to losing everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break a single law. I just knew the land better than she ever could. It took one woman and one clipboard to turn my quiet ranch into a battlefield, but it took land, law, and patience to win it back. A month after Karen left Timber Creek, a new family moved into her former home. They knocked on my gate the first weekend after settling, a couple in their 30s with 2 little girls holding fishing poles behind them. Nervous smiles, respectful distance. "Mr. Callahan," the father asked. "We heard a lot of noise about the lake. Just wanted to say we're not here to fight. We respect boundaries." I nodded once. That was all it took. They turned to go, but something tugged at me. Maybe it was the absence of Karen's voice echoing through the trees. Maybe it was the sound of kids giggling instead of HOA complaints. "You fish responsibly?" I asked. Dad turned back, eyes wide. "Sir, yes, always pack out. No loud music, no guests." I pushed open the gate. "Then you can drop a line. Sunsets are best." His face lit up like Christmas morning. That was the difference. Respect Karen wanted to rule the land. Others just wanted to enjoy it on my terms. But my war with Karen had left marks, not just on the ground, but in me. I found myself patrolling more often, double-checking fence posts, watching that lake like it was a treasure someone might still try to steal. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. Timber Creek HOA, for all its noise and nuisance, had gone quiet. They elected a new president, Maggie Cordell, a retired schoolteacher with no appetite for drama. She sent me a formal letter shortly after her election. "Dear Mr. Callahan, on behalf of the HOA, I'd like to apologize for the previous administration's overreach. You have every right to your land and privacy. Please know we have no intention of disturbing either." It was the first letter from that board I didn't throw in the trash. Still, I posted a new sign at the lake's edge: private property, access by permission only, not to antagonize, just to remind. The truth is, I didn't enjoy winning the way Karen lost. Watching someone unravel isn't victory, but protecting my legacy that mattered, because it was never just about the lake. It was about legacy, about a man's right to stand on his land and not be told what to do by someone who saw it from a back porch and decided it belonged to her. That lake is still my sanctuary. On warm evenings, I sit on the dock with my dog, a worn flannel shirt on my back, and a thermos of black coffee beside me. No HOA rules, no clipboard tyrants. Just the sound of wind in the reeds and the occasional splash of a bass breaking the surface. Sometimes neighbors wave from the other side of the fence, and now, sometimes I wave back, but I never forget. Karen thought the law could be bent. She thought loud voices and fake authority could erase a deed, a boundary, a man's will. But that's not how things work out here. You can print flyers, you can fake community interest. You can call the cops, cry wolf, stir up fear, but in the end, the land remembers who it belongs to, and so do I.